Okay, let's fire up the forge, the blacksmith said, and placed a wingtip on a small red symbol emblazoned on the side of a brick and metal box. The symbol began to glow, and a magic circle formed in the centre of the box. Then it erupted into flames. First we need to prepare our materials, he said, and flew over to a small pile of metal rods in the corner of his shop. He pointed his greying wingtips at one of them, and a yellow glow enveloped the rod, and it began to float towards a table with runes etched into the top. What are these for? I asked, gesturing to the engravings. Different things. One is for holding the metal in place, another for keeping it hot so it is more malleable, and the final one is to cool it off slowly for the tempering process, he explained. I didn't know much about metalwork in my world, but I did know that this was probably something the blacksmiths of Earth would kill a man for. Impressive, I said. Really? Those are pretty standard runes for metalwork. Are they uncommon on your world? He asked, as he pressed the rune on the forge again, making the flames grow even bigger. Magic doesn't exist in my world. We have metalwork, though, I told him. And when I did, he looked like I'd been speaking gibberish. A world without magic? How can such a thing exist, let alone have metalwork? He sounded flabbergasted. We use a gas called propane to create fire hot enough to heat the metal, and as for the shaping, I think they use automatic machine hammers now, I explained. But he still seemed confused. I spent a few minutes explaining what I did know about Earth's metalworking, which is not much, while the blacksmith nymph sat in stunned silence, and occasionally asking a question. Some of the questions I could answer, but most I couldn't. Our conversation lasted so long that the forge almost went cold, and needed to have more mana put into it. He was about to do it himself, but I thought it would be a good opportunity to learn how to use runes properly, so I asked him to show me and explain how to use the forge's rune. It's pretty simple, he started. Just make contact with the rune, and start flowing mana into it. May I try? I asked. He nodded his head, and I placed a hand on the rune and followed his instructions. Flowing mana into it was easy enough, just like paying for something, but as soon as I did, the rune glowed a bright red and the forge nearly exploded. Flames began pouring out of the furnace's opening so quickly that the blacksmith thought it best to close the door. It wasn't like that when you did it, I pointed out. You must have put in quite a bit of mana, he said. The more mana that goes into a rune, the stronger the effect. I wiped some sweat off of my brow. The forge had been going for a while, and the room had grown hot enough that I was glad once he closed the furnace door. So, can you show me how you made the rods flow like that? I asked. Of course. It's pretty simple, actually, he said, and floated one towards me for me to practice on. Just imagine wrapping the whole bar in a blanket of mana and manipulate that, as if you are picking it up by strings rather than by the bar itself. It made sense to me, so I gave it a try. I closed my eyes and held the bar in my hands, then imagine closing a wave of mana around the entire metal bar and lifting that mana up. I felt the metal leave my hand and opened my eyes to see it floating. You're a natural, he said, and floated a bar into the small open window of the furnace. Thanks, by the way. How long would it take for the metal to heat up? I asked. Not long. It's a flame rune, and the sides of the furnace are made of stones that reflect a lot of heat, so for a bar this size? 10 minutes, he explained. The time went by fast as I continued practicing moving the bar around and controlling it. Do you want to do the honours of pulling the bar out and placing it on the table? I'd love to, I replied. I went over to assist him. Okay, just be careful. You don't lose control and drop it. It will be glowing red hot and might burn you if it touches you, he told me. I carefully wrapped my mana around the bar and slowly pulled it from the flames, but as soon as it was out we noticed a problem. It wasn't red hot. In fact, it wasn't hot at all, and neither was the forge. I could feel any heat coming from the forge. Oh no, I realised. I'm sorry, I think I inverted the forge with my magic, I explained. What do you mean? The Nume asked. My magic is inversion. I can invert the types of any form of magic. I guess when I used the rune, I must have caused the fire rune to turn into an ice rune or something, I explained. Inversion, he wondered. I can't say I've ever heard of that. He looked over the metal rod and saw that it indeed wasn't at all hot, but nevertheless it's fixable. Just place the rod over there and I will fix the forge. I floated the rod to the table he gestured at, and he flew over to the rune. He placed a wing onto the rune and the flames went out, then removed it and repeated the process to turn it back on. I tried to put the rod down as gently as I could manage, but as soon as it hit the table it shattered like glass, dropped from a 3-story window. Sorry, I said, looking down at the shattered mass. How on Atmosia did that happen? The blacksmith exclaimed. I took a quick note of that phrase and reminded myself to ask Suma about her world's name. It must have been the cold, I theorized. The cold broke the rod? He said, amazed. I guess if you get anything past a certain temperature it becomes fragile, I said. using magic to pick up the pieces and place them on the table. Just as I finished picking up the final piece, the nymph said it would take another few moments for the forge to heat up fully. That was fine with me. I wanted to try something. I closed my eyes and started focusing on one of the pieces of the shattered rod. "What are you doing?" he asked, as I sat on the floor with a small shard of metal in front of me. "Heat. It's just the atoms of an object vibrating rapidly. I want to see if I can induce that effect without flames. All I really have to do is add energy after all," I explained with my eyes closed, still focusing on the shard. I pictured flowing mana into the broken bit of metal, and then causing the atoms of the shard to vibrate quicker and quicker until the metal started to glow. I imagined the atoms absorbing the energy of my mana into themselves. Then I heard it. "Now how did you do that?" I opened my eyes and saw a red-hot shard of metal, almost beginning to melt on the floor.